It's time for Lean In with Dr. Marlin on CCFM 107.5, unpacking the connection between spirituality and academia.
Good evening, family. My name is Phineas Waha and welcome to Leaning In with Dr. Marlin. How are you, sir?
I can't complain.
You can't complain?
Wow, what a weekend.
Jeez,
what a weekend.
I feel like I need to take my dogs to SPCA.
Why?
Yeah, because there seems to be a beef about walking dogs without a leash.
Look, I'm not going to get involved.
We're not going to get involved?
No.
Oh, man.
I walk away from this thing. I stand back from the vehicle.
My dog's a little bit crazy, so they're not trained. So I will keep them on the leash, ladies and gentlemen.
Absolutely.
So I have heard and read some of your messages and heard you guys speak. So I'll definitely make sure that I keep it on the leash.
Yeah.
So last week we were speaking about delegation and empowerment, and we're gonna do a little bit of a revision on that. So I would like to know just a little bit of a background, a little bit of where we came from until where we are, just to keep everybody in the loop. But you do want to get people involved a little bit into the show. So if you want to engage more, please don't hesitate to connect with us, send us your comments, send us your messages so that we can make sure you feel heard on this station. We are talking about delegation, we are talking about empowerment. We're doing a little bit of a recap on some of the things that we have been speaking about. This is based on Dr. Marlin's book called Academia and Spirituality, where his two worlds come together. I like the sound of the train.
Oh yeah.
We are in Muizenberg.
Absolutely, and with the overcast weather as well.
I know.
So it set a certain tone.
I know.
But let's share that WhatsApp number.
Yeah.
So the WhatsApp number 065 798 1075. 065 798 1075.
A little bit of a recap.
Yes.
On delegation and empowerment. We're doing chapter 12 of the book, if I can recall really well. I don't know. Are we there? Are we on 11 or are we on 12?
Look,
we're almost done with your book, actually.
Yeah,
so
there's about 10 chapters left.
And that's your only book, so we have to make a plan after this.
Look,
show.
I started writing on the second one, but let's talk about that.
Book?
Yes, let's talk about that on another occasion.
Is it about marriage? Is it about
Sorry,
love?
bud. I can't help you there. You were looking for certain gems. I can't help you there.
Listen, I need some advice because I'm about to get married very soon.
I'm not going to say I'm going to put my foot in it.
Okay.
And it's probably advice that I don't use.
Okay.
So I don't want to be that hypocrite.
Okay.
I'm not that guy.
Delegation and empowerment. Let's do a little bit of a recap on that.
So we chapter 11. What is interesting is that when we spoke about this delegation and empowerment, we looked at the differences. Mm-hmm. We looked at how we delegate and what's the difference between delegating power and empowering somebody.
Right.
Because delegating means that proxy, that shift. When I look at empowerment, you necessarily don't need to be in a particular position,
right?
Because I give you certain tools to make you perform better,
right?
To make you understand better, to make you work through things better. So when we look at this delegation and empowerment, we said how unfair sometimes it is that we delegate the authority. But we don't delegate that decision making. We delegate the accountability, but not and the responsibility. But we don't delegate that final decision making power. And that was an interesting conversation that we sort of unpacked.
I mean, is it a trust thing? Because it's easy to give responsibility to people and not give them authority.
Look, the moment and here's the thing about and especially when I look at leadership and I look at how leadership changes hands.
Right.
How the baton gets passed on from one leader to the other. It's about that trust factor that you are not the only one that can do this job. Look, the moment I hang on to power longer than I should, then immediately there's mistrust in my followers, there's mistrust in my successors. Because, again, it comes through. Am I looking for a man after my own heart?
Yeah.
So it's interesting to understand that, and somebody just says now, that delegation robs the individual of a growth opportunity, and that's so true. Because it's a growth opportunity, you won't be the full leader
until
you take over.
So you basically go in with a backpack. You don't go in with bricks so that you can build something there and stay there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a temporary thing.
It's a temporary thing. Whether you're a leader for 30 years,
Yeah.
that's temporary.
You see that with presidents, when they go to another country, somebody has to step in for them.
Absolutely.
And that is only temporary.
It's only temporary. Even your tenure, even if we look at how the American system works.
Yeah.
South African, 4 years. Americans term is 8 years.
Yeah.
Longer than 8 years. Ours is a bit different because we look at the ruling party.
Yeah.
The president of the ruling party. So even in those 8 years, even in 20 years,
Yeah.
that is your allotted time, and that's not even that is permanent.
Yeah.
So when we're looking at this delegation, what we as leaders should not expect that somebody comes in
Yeah.
and knows all the answers.
But what if you delegate somebody that the people they should lead, when the people who are in that space don't trust the person that has been delegated? How do you navigate around that? Because sometimes as a leader, you will choose the person and assume and think that the people around will cheer on that person. But what if you delegate somebody that is not liked by the public?
I think what is interesting about the comment you're making is that the incumbent, the current leader, should build the new leader, the incoming leader,
Right.
into the hearts of the people.
Right. Okay.
So first, as a leader, I need to show support.
yeah.
First, as a leader, when I delegate,
Yeah.
and very interesting that in that phase of transition, and we spoke about the sunset period,
Yeah.
how do I empower?
Yeah.
Different word now. How do I empower the incumbent for this handing over period?
Yeah.
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 And that's important because the rest of the group
Yeah.
needs to understand that Marlon has faith
Yeah.
in the next guy taking over,
Because you see,
or guy or gal taking over.
You see it very often. The pastor will be going maybe on an international trip, and somebody will stand in for the pastor to be running the church for the next 3 months. And based on the leader or the preacher, there will be few congregation members showing up to church, because now it has not become about the message; it has become about the messenger.
The messenger. Absolutely. And as a leader, we got to be aware of that.
Yeah.
As
And it's
a-
not just about the message; it's about the messenger as well.
Absolutely, and the leader has to be aware of that, because what happens is I might be less charismatic as the next person.
Yeah.
I might not have the gift,
Yeah.
and I put that in inverted commas.
Yeah.
I might not have the gift of the other person.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: if I don't have that particular gift as a leader,
Yeah.
then I won't be speaking all the time.
But is it because maybe the leader needs to build a culture of delegation so that
Absolutely.
the congregation's familiar with not just one phase but different phases,
And-
the
and-
diversity of that.
And it's very interesting that you brought in this word culture,
Yeah.
because culture is important.
Yeah.
The culture of the organization is important. The leader has got to keep his finger on the pulse in terms of the culture. When is the right time to make the change?
Okay.
Now I'm actively involved in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I look at how an international organization changes leadership.
Yes.
Look at, and it must be a smooth transition. It can't just be the one ends and the other one starts.
Right.
We look what how the reigns have been changed in the Catholic Church. We look at the introduction of the New Apostolic Church's Chief Apostle Helper. Very interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see who buys into this of the followership.
Yeah.
And then we hang on.
Yeah.
We hang on to this idea
Yeah.
that it's about that leader, but that leader was like this, and the
Yeah.
leader was like that.
How do you deal with that comparison though? Because it does happen.
Look,
Where Phineas now has to fit into Dr. Marlon's shoes, but Phineas is Phineas. It's not like Dr. Marlon. How fair is that? It's not fair for me to be compared to you because we are completely different people.
absolutely. This is the thing, is that during my tenure,
Yeah.
I need to iterate. I'm not here forever.
Yeah.
I need to iterate.
Yeah.
And as time goes on, so I'll answer your question right now. I'm giving sort of the remedy.
Right. I got it.
Is that as I come closer to my time when I need to end my tenure,
Yeah.
I
yeah.
need to introduce those new voices more and more.
Right. Right.
I need to, and then I have my finger on the pulse. Then
Yeah.
I do the dipstick.
Yeah.
Then I check.
Yeah.
What's the reaction?
Yeah.
I need to build the bridge. That is the last part of me being a leader. Is build this bridge and connection.
Yeah.
So what happens if I'm in the case where it falls flat? That is the time I need to call a special family meeting.
Right.
Hey, you remember our family meetings?
Yeah.
I need to call a special family meeting. And I have to set the record straight.
I mean, sometimes even though those you delegate, sometimes maybe they have an ambition, to even stay or overstay their visit per se, or maybe they come in with a new vision. How do you deal with that?
Here's the thing. Anybody that is willing to hang around forever shouldn't go near actually leadership at all. They shouldn't go near it.
But don't we have that in Africa though?
We do.
Where some people have been in leadership for like 30 years.
Absolutely.
Not because they want to be in leadership for so many years, but because the people want them to be in that position for such a long time, which is not viewed as democratic, more of a dictatorship. But I think it's a difference of tradition and the Western view of what democracy is. I don't know.
Well, look. It is interesting that you mention that, because in Africa, we've allowed a lot of influences that took us off the course of who we really are.
Right.
It took us away from who we are authentically.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
that is a political debate of note.
Yeah.
and then we're going to speak about colonization, and we're going to speak about the colonizer.
We are not going to go.
We're not going to go that.
Yeah.
So coming back to this understanding of what the leader controls this measure.
Yeah.
It's like being part of the birth of the new leader.
Yeah.
You go through the gestation period.
Yeah.
And you actually, as the leader, have you the midwife.
Yeah.
You birthing the new leader into this new era.
Yeah.
Of the church, of the organization.
Yeah.
If you do it incorrectly, if you do it off the seat of your pants,
Yeah.
if it's not thought through,
Yeah.
guess what happens?
Yeah.
It's not going to work.
And again, we spoke about, if it's not a shared vision.
If it's not, and this is the thing, I need the various layers, because as a leader, I know at which layers I play. I know leaders that has their ear to the ground on every level.
Who you make me think of? You make me think of Paul and Timothy, because their relationship was very interesting in terms of mentorship, in terms of discipling, in terms of this is the next generation who's going to take over. Is that what we expecting when it comes to empowering and delegating? That it shouldn't be somebody who is not in aligned with the vision and the values and the
Absolutely.
culture. It should be somebody who's...
And it's interesting that when we look at that type of value or culture, we look to Christ.
Right, exactly, yeah.
That is the ultimate
it's about
strategy.
the vision, yeah.
It's about the vision that Christ set down. Any diversion from that vision, you're going to see. Look, if you want to know whether you're on the right path, do a test and ask yourself, am I still aligned to the vision?
What happens when it becomes more about the leader than the vision?
That's the problem, because then the leader has allowed that. The leader has allowed, and I don't know that if you notice how Paul writes his letters, he constantly brings this humility in. He constantly brings that I'm a servant, I'm a bond servant, I'm a slave, I'm in Christ.
Yeah, we don't like that word.
And guess what? He sort of makes the reader realize that he's not up there. He's with us. He's with us in the struggle. Right? It's again this understanding of am I part of that community? Or do I keep myself above the community? So again, test my purpose, and test my vision.
And the thing is, if it becomes about the leader, then the leader will die with the vision. Because it's about personality now. It's not about the vision. Usually. And I feel like sometimes we follow the personality or the leader personality rather than actually the vision of, the organization. And we have more loyalty, to or allegiance to the person rather than actually what the constitution of the country says.
So what is interesting about that is that when we hang on to the personality, we will always be stuck in the past.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
Because guess what? the golden, the good old days.
Yeah.
When Phineas was a pastor, when Marlon was the pastor. We never ever current.
Yeah.
We never in the present moment.
Yeah.
We're always comparing, and I was told by somebody, the missus at home, that said to me, comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
so that's important to understand.
Yeah.
That the moment I sit in 2025, but I reflect on a leader of 1995, I'm 30 years behind.
I mean, when you have leaders who set the tone or the standard, for example, Nelson Mandela, or other leaders. Now, Zuma, Ramaphosa, whoever's going to be the next president,
Yes,
is filtered through that. Is that fair?
it's unfair.
Because they're not him.
Correct.
And maybe, some people will consider even Nelson Mandela, sorry to say, as a sellout, because they don't understand that in that season that he was in, he was assigned for a specific thing, and those who came after him were supposed to carry on with the baton and do other things. But there's this comparison of leadership.
Yeah. When we look at that empowerment element and delegation, we need to understand the context in which empowerment and delegation takes place.
Right.
We need to understand where the organization is at in that particular phase of its growth phase. Be it a growth phase, be it a decline phase.
And not expect it to be the same when a new person comes in.
Absolutely.
Because oftentimes we expect things to remain the same with a new person. And
you know what? When we think about this intelligently, and when we think about this even better inspired by the Spirit, we'll realize what leader is required for this time. Because you can get a leader that needs to stabilize things, and that leader's tenure is only 6 months. He's just here to stabilize things. He's here to settle the boat. Then you get the other leader that comes in. He's around for 10 years. That is the growth leader. The organization needs that impetus in his leadership to grow. But when I delegate power, do I delegate the power to make those decisions to grow? Do I develop my group that I've identified as a leader? Do I empower them enough to know that the next phase of the organization of the church or of the business needs to take a particular direction?
Maybe even understanding that difference doesn't mean wrong. It's important, because sometimes we expect, when somebody is coming in and they're doing something different, we're like, no, that's wrong, but it's actually different. Especially the tension between the elders and the young people.
Yes. and
let's speak about maybe the type of worship in church, because some people are used to a certain specific kind of type of worship, and then you put a young person who comes in with a different type of worship. How do you balance those two things? Because yes, the traditional part is important, but we need to evolve as well. How do you balance those two things?
I think it's important for the one that was delegated the responsibility to. I think it's important for that one to understand the group that they're working with, that the shift doesn't take place immediately.
Yeah.
I need to read the room.
And the vision should not only be shared between those who are in proximity with the leader, but the whole.
But everybody.
Even the children in the church need to be aware of the vision of the church.
Look,
or the organization. I don't know.
We have AGMs.
Yeah.
We have AGMs, large corporations, and everybody that's interested, that's a stakeholder, they get to come and sit down, and they get to come and talk. And they come and air their views about certain things. What is interesting about what you are saying is that, and what comes to mind is that what happens, let me first just look at that young person that must take over worship.
Yes.
That young person with a delegated authority needs to also be empowered with the wisdom to make that transition. I want to say this. I have been witness to organizations where the leader who did the planting, the leader that did the settling. He wasn't there to sit in the shade of the trees that he planted.
Right.
The next leader that came along, the fruit, the trees bore fruit with the next leader. So you had this transition where the one was planting, and he was happy planting. He was a brilliant leader in terms of the ideas that he invested. But he knew that his ROI of the planting would not come in his time.
Right.
Now that's the wisdom of the leader. That the wisdom of the leader looks, and I'm busy reading a very interesting book, that the wisdom of the leader does not just look at the current position.
Yeah.
The wisdom of the leader looks at where we come from.
Ah.
He looks at where we are now, and
Right.
he looks at where we are going to.
Yeah.
So that there's this seamless transition. Right? Nobody, and it's not because you don't want to rock the boat.
No.
It's because of the diversity within the organization. I have young people.
And speaking about that, how important do you think representation is when it comes to leadership?
Very important.
Especially in the context of South Africa, when you live in
Very,
such a
very
diverse
important.
country.
Look, it's one of those things that everybody needs to be represented.
Right.
Everybody needs to be represented because that brings that sense of belonging. That's that sense that Owen Eastwood speaks about.
It even increases the team.
Absolutely.
You know, so the more people feel represented, the more they feel drawn into that space because they can see parts of them in that thing. I mean, I remember with Black Panther, you know, when it came out.
Yeah.
The reason why it blew up because there was such a diverse people.
Correct.
Within that space where everybody felt represented, everybody could see themselves in the movie,
and that's
why they
important
broke
part.
the record. Yeah.
Because that belonging. When you look at the four Gospels.
Yeah.
When you look at Pentecost, not too long ago,
Yeah.
they spoke each and everybody's language that was there.
Yeah.
That already showed that the moment somebody greets you in your mother tongue and you're in a foreign country, immediately there's a sense of home.
There's a new gym that I went to. I'm not going to say mention the name of it. And I was the only probably black guy in there. And then me and the guy, we noticed each other. And you could see as we just noted.
Yes.
You know, and it's
Absolutely.
like, oh, you're here. I don't know the guy. He doesn't know me. But the immediate, when he saw me, there was a sense of, I belong here. We belong
Familiarity.
here. Familiarity.
And that's important.
Yeah.
Look, in my father's house, there are many mansions. We need to understand that. So now we're talking about the building blocks of this.
Yeah.
Now imagine, let's shift one up and let's look at how power is delegated.
Yeah.
Can you see how the wisdom of the leader comes through
Yeah.
in looking at all these things that we're talking about?
Yeah.
The lead. So does the leader really have time to preach 3 hours on a Sunday?
Yeah.
Now, don't you think that the leader must take that step back
Yeah.
and say, you know what, boys, I handed out to the interesting thing. Attended church on Sunday.
Yeah.
It was Father's Day.
Yeah.
And part of the service was the young men brought testimony.
Oh, wow. Because of Youth Day.
Because of Youth Day the next day.
Yeah.
And Father's Day.
Yes. Yeah.
And it was awesome to see that the preacher's job, preacher's plural, job is actually in jeopardy.
Wow.
Because the talent that is coming through, the understanding of the scripture that is coming through.
Shouldn't that be celebrated instead of being tolerated?
Absolutely.
Because that shows that, you know what, the church is growing, the church is moving. It's not stuck in the same place.
No, absolutely.
You know, and we need to be flexible because, I mean, my mentor used to speak about Phineas, don't have a dinosaur mindset. The reason why dinosaurs are not now, they don't exist now is because they refuse to adopt.
Absolutely.
I don't know if dinosaurs existed, but that's what he said, that you need to move in with time.
You need to move. You have to move with time.
You know, it's time for pension, it's time to step down.
Yes, it's and it's about relevance.
Yeah.
You know, and now I get this message that says legacy. What is legacy? It's planting seeds in a garden you will never get to see. And that's the awesome part of perpetuating the gospel.
Yeah.
It's the awesome part of perpetuating life itself. Is that when we pass on from one generation to the next, that we identify the responsible ones to be empowered.
Yeah.
Because look, we can go ahead and empower everybody.
Yeah.
But not everybody has got the emotional intelligence.
Yeah, true.
They don't have that maturity.
Yeah.
Not yet. It comes. You know, what does Paul say? When I was a child, I did things of a child.
Yeah.
You know, now I'm a man.
Yeah.
Not everybody, and age does not govern that. So I can be a 20-year-old.
Some people suffer from ageism.
Yeah,
You
they
know,
do.
because I'm very young.
Yeah, only
know,
the elders can talk to me. Only the elders can talk to me, Phineas.
Yeah, the elders are always right.
Yes, if you're
know.
not the elder. And then yesterday, somebody brought up a Bible text, and I don't know exactly what it is. Those out there can remind me of the Bible text that knows the address of the Bible text.
Yeah.
It says that fathers provoking their sons or provoking their children to anger.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
is that the part where the Bible speaks about children must, obey their parents, but parents should not provoke their children.
not provoke their
So
children.
it's not one way.
No, it's not a one-way street.
Because sometimes as parents we can trigger the children and then they react in a certain way, then we blame the children.
Absolutely.
And that's called being narcissistic.
So, and then the other thought comes up. But Marlon, what happens in the case of an emergency leadership change? But when, and I go back to what I said the last time, at the beginning of my tenure as a leader,
Yeah.
if I haven't chosen my successor, then there's an emergency leadership change. But
What if you don't find a successor? Does that mean it's time for you to close the door?
there's always a successor. What are the eyes that I'm looking at for the successor?
But when you when you're hiring, but you have somebody in mind.
Yeah. And we do it as a tick box exercise. Yeah. No, I hear where you're going to with that.
When we ask God to bless us, but
but we actually
our way.
know, yeah. It and I wrote something on the board in my bedroom. I pray, yet I want my own way.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to understand that it is not just and this becomes a sort of three-actor dynamic.
Right.
We have the leader.
Yeah.
We have the new leader, and then we have the audience.
Yes.
And how they interact, because the new leader needs to still be in the shadow of the current leader,
Right.
so that the current leader can take you down the alleyways, can take you down the corridors of what are the do's and don'ts, what to look out for.
What if the leader is intimidated by the one that he delegates?
You mentioned this on the last show, and that is interesting.
It happens very often.
It does.
Because some leaders, they want to die with the vision, and I'm like, you need to let go of it. But sometimes we even delegate the person that we feel comfortable with.
Again, the man out of my own heart. How do I circumvent that? How do I circumvent this understanding that the leader has somebody in mind, and this person outshines the leader? That is work that the leader must do on him or herself. Because if this is about, just imagine, David asked the question, why can't I build the temple? They told him, dude, your hands are full, it's bloody. You will not build the temple.
Yeah.
Jesus says, you will do greater work than me.
Yeah.
Did he at any time say, you will do greater work than me? Oh, just hang on, let me take all your powers again.
Yeah.
Because, wow, you can't outshine me.
Yeah, you can't be greater than the
You can't
master.
be greater than me.
Yeah.
But because he did it for the glory of the Father,
It was not about him.
it was not about him. So the moment it becomes about me, then I tend to take this position of, no, look, this is an ego thing. I had an interesting discussion today about when does it become the ego and when is it me and when is it the spirit?
Yeah.
It's difficult to differentiate.
Yeah.
But the easy part, I get reminded, is where's the source of it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is the source out of the eye?
Yeah.
Right? Or is the source out of the spirit?
Yeah.
How do I do that differentiation?
Yeah, I mean, some of us are led by our childhood trauma.
All the time. and again, when we look at that, I chatted to Natasha, the earlier presenter, and off air, and we were talking about trauma and how we need to unpack trauma.
Yeah.
How we need to sit down with ourselves and ask, where did Marlon walk from?
Yeah. I mean, if you lived your whole life being disempowered, being looked down upon, when you get power, you kind of get exposed.
It's ugly. Now, first it gets ugly.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to show everybody of my past that I am not that loser that what I was.
You're going to try to prove to
I must prove to those people.
But the more you prove to them, the more you're enslaved by them, because now they control you.
The more you prove to them, the more you try and prove them wrong, you're proving them right. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So when we sit with that, And I like this. I like that thought about this trauma, because leaders sit with trauma. What happens, and it's perceived trauma sometimes.
Yeah.
What happens to me after this? I've dedicated 50 years of my life.
Yeah.
I've built the church.
Yeah.
I've walked in the gospel.
Yeah.
I have the titles for it.
Yeah.
What happens next?
Who am I without the title?
Who am I without the
Will I
title?
still be respected without a title?
Now that I'm sitting at the bench, not everybody flocks to me after church. Or nobody runs after me to my car in the parking lot.
Is it because maybe we love being worshipped as people or as leaders?
Look, we've
And we are
always...
addicted to that.
Look,
and once we step down, we get withdrawals.
The enemy has loved it so much, the attention, he wanted to take the throne. And he got thrown out with his buddies. That spirit is not gone. That spirit is not... the story of Joseph sitting in the mercy seat.
Yeah.
You know, that seat is not for you, dude.
Yeah, we can point fingers at those guys, but sometimes the Judas and the Peter, some of those guys are us.
We sit with it, and guess what? We sit with it thinking that it's right. We stifle renewal
Yeah.
because, no, that guy is too young to be the next leader.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
he's way too young.
Yeah.
I mean, what does he know about life? What does he really know about life, Phineas?
Yeah, he doesn't have experience. But
No, he doesn't.
But what if that's an opportunity for me to get experience?
So, 26 years old,
Yeah.
he's wet behind the ears. Here's the thing,
Yeah.
that this wisdom does not ask for age,
Especially when it comes to the Holy Spirit.
especially the Holy Spirit.
Because he's the one that qualifies you. He's the one that teaches you all things. But sometimes we think the Holy Spirit lays in certain people. If you're not on stage, you're not anointed. But I've met a lot of people who are anointed who are not always on the stage with a mic.
Yeah.
They clean toilets.
Yeah.
They're mopping.
and it's understanding, and what I'm saying in the book is understanding your cosmic position.
Yeah.
It's understanding where you belong at a particular time in your existence.
Right.
And when you embrace the time where you are at, that first you need to bring testimony to yourself.
When do you know it's time to let go and step down?
As the leader.
As a leader, and have to give over. Is it based on age? Because some people rely on age to say, you know what, I've retired. But can you retire when you are 30, 33? Like Jesus.
An interesting thing is that I've been part of organizations where the leader is 50 years old.
Yeah.
And how I know that the leader is ready for retirement, it's when he says the same thing over and over.
Okay.
It's when you get the same message over and over. It's when he runs out of words and he goes back to his default.
Yeah.
So
it's when things become too comfortable, I guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And he will tell you the stories that he's been telling you all your... So when the passion dies for that role, and I just got it. When the passion dies for the role. And that's important, and that also does not have an age limit. When passion runs out, it runs out. You need to go into seclusion.
Can you refill? Like we spoke.
Absolutely.
Because at some point we spoke about sharpening the axe every now and then. You can't be chopping wood.
No, you need
without
to.
taking breaks.
You need to go and you need to refuel. You need to go into that quiet space.
Yeah.
Jesus did that all the time.
Yes.
He didn't just go to the Garden of Gethsemane to pray on that Thursday.
Yeah.
Or on that faithful night of his rest. He was always praying somewhere. He is always, and that's why the interest amongst the disciples grew.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lord, teach us to pray.
Yeah.
John's guys are praying, teach us to pray.
Yeah.
And
it's funny that they asked Jesus that, teach us how to pray. I mean, I probably would have asked him for some weird stuff.
Look,
I think asking Jesus to teach them how to pray, they knew that through prayer they have access to everything else.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what he taught them. And again, and you know what thought comes to mind about the 70, right? So he has 70 disciples, right? And he empowers them.
Yeah.
And when they come back, he listens to the report of what they did.
Yeah.
And it was about what they did.
Yeah.
It was about... So now you start going and you start going, wait. I now need to I need to de-escalate this.
Yeah.
You know, because now I'm going to have all these guys running around.
Yeah.
and saying we did this in your name and we did that in your name,
Yeah.
but it was filled with such arrogance.
Yeah,
And-
I mean that's what I mean. It does say, many will say, we did all these things in your name. You know.
And then yet he says, I know you're not. So,
Yeah.
so as a leader,
Yeah.
so let's flip the coin for a
Mm,
moment.
mm,
And let's look at, as a leader, how do I prevent this from happening?
yeah. So that it doesn't become
Yeah.
about the
Be-
person. But
Because I think up until now we've discussed
yeah.
everything that we can see.
Yeah, because I think for me as a leader, you don't represent yourself. You represent the kingdom. You represent the vision. But oftentimes, a lot of leaders, they want to be represented rather than actually the delegation, representing where they come from.
Yes. So when we do that flip,
Mm.
we take that very leader that you've explained now,
Mm.
and we take that leader and we look at that particular leader and we say, so what do you have to do to change that mindset?
Yeah.
So now you got to go into your sacred space.
Mm.
You now have to revive yourself.
Yeah.
Your best before was long time over.
Mm.
So you need to go and replenish.
Yeah.
And it's about the responsibility to the legacy that I leave behind.
Mm.
It's the responsibility of handing over what the Spirit has handed over to me from my predecessor.
Do you think every leader should have someone that they're developing behind the scenes to possibilities of taking over? Like with soccer teams or other sports teams, they will have, there will be a national team, maybe Kaizer Chiefs or Pirates, but they also have like a school where they're developing young players who will probably be part of their.
There's always the pipeline.
Yeah.
There's always the pipeline. And the one thing that we miss is that the institution will always remain until the return of Christ.
Yeah. Amen.
The institution will always remain. The church will always remain until that day.
Yeah.
So what happens is that as a leader comes in, the responsibility of taking over the baton, taking the legacy, now I have to sit and I have to do this after 30 years and go, Marlon, am I still have the shared vision in mind?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do I still know what this is about?
Mm-hmm.
Or have I lost the plot?
Yeah.
So in that moment now I gotta get those closest to me. My inner circle.
Yeah.
And my inner circle must give me feedback about where they feel I'm at.
Ah. Can you give feedback to leaders?
Absolutely.
I mean, a lot of leaders
need
like to
to.
give feedback, but to
No.
receive feedback
You need
is
to
like
give feedback
another...
you need to give feedback to leaders.
I remember I did that with one of the ladies from Germany. She was volunteering with the Trisana Foundation, and at the end of her time, I said, "Hey, we need feedback from you." She was a little bit shocked that we needed feedback from her. It's like, hey, if we need to improve and do things better, please give us a little bit of feedback. And she gave us an amazing feedback. And now the things that she has experienced, now we're implementing them in the organization. So the vision has become even bigger.
Yes.
Because of the feedback.
I love feedback. I mean, we finished with this show. We walked down the corridor. I asked you, Phineas, how was it?
How was it?
Yeah, I get Liz and I said to Liz, how was it?
Yeah. Yeah.
I get home and I ask Heidi, what do you think?
Yeah.
I'm always looking for feedback because that's the blind spot. That's the blind spot.
So we have to be teachable as leaders.
I said some time back,
Yeah.
the greatest leaders are the best followers.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So when we understand this and that's the lifeblood of leadership, this feedback that we need.
Yeah.
So now I'm sitting and firstly I must listen to my spirit to say there is something wrong here.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's something not feeling right.
Yeah.
And 9 out of 10 times when something is wrong and we don't do anything about it is
Right.
because of our ego.
Yes.
So we tend to shift it away and say it is not I.
Yeah, and feedback is to make us better. But I think there's better ways of giving feedback. Some people will give feedback to shame you rather than to uplift you. And they will do that in public and not in private.
There's lots of ways of opening up the door for feedback. You know your customers.
Are you very good at inviting it?
I love inviting feedback. And look, I say be harsh and be brutal and do what you need to do.
Yeah, yeah.
Then again, for me, it is about who I am.
Yeah, yeah.
Where I'm going to on this journey.
Yeah.
It's a journey. Being Christian is not static. Being Christian is a journey.
It's not a dam, it's a river.
It's a river.
Yeah.
We're going to find people coming along the way and say, Marlon, those shoes are not ready for that terrain.
And there's going to be people better than us.
All the time.
Yeah.
Look,
Yeah.
I'm not the fastest rat in the race.
I used to think like Ronaldo and Messi are the best soccer players. Now you look at these young players coming up, you're like, whoa.
Absolutely. and here's the thing. It's because I try to close the world in. But
Right.
let's go back again.
Yeah.
I need to. It's not a lot of time. Our show is almost there. Let's give some advice to the leaders that's out there.
Yeah.
Let's give advice to the congregation that experiences leaders like this. And when you give feedback and the leader's not open to the feedback, pray about the feedback first.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't get a union going.
Yeah.
You know, we're looking for a stirrer. We're looking for somebody that is the shop steward. You know, that person who's the shop steward already has a reputation in the organization. Right? Pray about what you want to say. Be clear about what you want to say.
Yeah.
That message that must come through.
And don't keep the vision to yourself. Write it down.
Absolutely.
So that it's clear as the Bible instructs.
And that vision and your interpretation. And you know what? When we speak about these things, yes, people take it personally.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's nothing you can do about it. Because people take ownership. Some people take ownership of their behavior.
Yeah.
So that is for those sitting in the pews, for those sitting in the meetings, for those sitting in the businesses that needs to give the leader feedback. So for the leader, once the leader does not accept feedback,
Yeah.
I can tell you the leader is no longer on her or his knees.
Ooh. That's true.
They vacated the post
Yeah.
of being on their knees.
Yeah. Because, I mean, prayer is a sign of humility.
Absolutely.
Because what you're saying when you are praying is that you need help. And you cannot do this without
You
the
can't do
helper.
it. Absolutely. And the moment you've stopped kneeling as a leader,
Yeah.
your tenure is over. Your tenure is no longer spirit-led.
Because now you lean on your own understanding.
Now you're leaning on your own understanding.
Right.
So what happens is now I go a step further. Break up the group that says yes all the time to you. Dismantle that group.
But we like followers who are yes people.
But here's the thing.
People pleasers.
They are not my followers. They don't follow me.
We don't like troublemakers. The
We-
ones that question everything.
We need troublemakers. We need Paul. We need disruptors. Because it's the disruptors that there's the essence of truth in disruption. And then we must be
true.
circumspect in what the disruption is about.
I find a lot of leaders, this is very interesting what you're saying, because I find a lot of leaders, they don't like being questioned. You know, if you tell Phineas to jump, he will ask you why. He's
Yeah.
not gonna jump. He's gonna ask you why are you telling me to jump? I
Yeah.
need a reason.
Absolutely.
But some people find that very offensive.
Here's the interesting part.
Because I want to own the reason why I should jump. In case somebody asks me, why Phineas, why did you jump?
Here's the interesting part. Turn the tables. Somebody asks me to jump, I say you first. Let's see if you're going to jump first. Again.
Yeah.
So we come back.
Yeah.
And those are dictators.
Yeah. Yeah.
That wants to give you under the auspices of the Spirit, and I put that in inverted commas,
Yes.
that dictates to you
Yeah.
what you should and shouldn't do. Because the Spirit is just as alive within you as it is within me.
Right. Wow.
Right.
Wow.
So again, we come back to the leader.
Wow.
If the leader is not on his or her knees,
Wow.
their tenure has ended.
And does not view the other person as the image bearer of God.
Absolutely. So that already is a discrepancy. That's the
Yeah.
first one. Second one, dismantle the group around you, for they're not good for you. Right. That's the second part.
Wow.
The third one is go and re-look at your approximation or your position
Yeah.
to the shared vision. That is what you need to do.
Yeah.
You need to go back.
Yeah.
You need to go and
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
Go back to the tailor. That jacket is a bit too tight, or that jacket is too big.
Yeah.
Go and understand why the fit is not right.
Yeah. Tailor the suit to your size.
Tailor the suit to your size. Now, that is the leader. That is the same recipe I give to those that have been empowered. I give the same recipe to those that have been delegated.
Yeah.
Follow your Christ in humility first.
Do you think leaders should give ingredients or should they give a final product?
Leaders.
Yeah. when you say you're empowering somebody, because a lot of us, we like 2-minute noodles. Here's power. But do you think it's important to teach people how to obtain power rather than giving them power? Because if you give me power, I'm not learning anything about how to obtain that and even maintain that.
Yeah.
Because then I become a little bit entitled.
Here's the thing about my existence
Yeah.
or the result of my existence was because of the things I did.
Right.
Many of the things my parents did for me that fell along the wayside.
Oh, wow.
But the things I did through the empowerment that has made me who I am today. Why? Because I was actively involved. Wisdom comes from taking knowledge and adding action.
I mean, think about inheritance, right? Would you rather give your child the inheritance or the money, or would you rather give them the knowledge to get money?
Look, I would.
Or will you do both?
I would give them the knowledge, but here's the thing: it's a balancing act.
It's a balancing act.
It's a balancing.
There has to be a starting capital.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the balancing act is that first we need to understand our interpretation of power.
Yeah. Yeah.
What does power mean?
Mm-hmm.
What does power mean in my context?
Yeah.
What does it mean to be empowered in my context?
For me, it's access. I want access, to obtain that. Don't give me power, give me access. Like, I have mentors. A lot of times when I speak with my mentors, it's like, don't tell me about the book you read. Tell me where to get the book so that I can read what you're reading.
So it's the concept of teach a man how to fish instead of giving him fish.
Yeah, right.
Here's the thing
But
about...
also, if you're teaching me how to fish, give me the ocean and the land and a piece of land.
I hear you. I hear that you're speaking about the access.
Mm-hmm.
I hear that you are saying that, Marlon, I need the access.
Yeah.
Sometimes the access needs to be sought
by
the one that was being empowered.
Mm.
Because now I'm borderlining on spoon feeding you. Now I'm borderlining on the traits that you have and the characteristics that you have acquired. Is now I need to preach on a particular platform.
Right.
I need a particular temperature of the aircon in the church. I need to have a particular sunlight coming in.
Smoke machine, everything else.
So I need all these things.
No offense to smoke machines.
I need all these things. So what happens is that I need to understand what my purpose is.
Yeah.
What my purpose is connected to this empowerment.
Right.
Why I have been delegated.
Yeah.
Search myself for it, because what happens is the biggest mistake we make in organizations is that we develop wheelbarrows.
Ooh.
You know what are wheelbarrows? They can carry a lot.
Yeah.
But I have to push them around. Because there where I leave the wheelbarrow, it stays.
Because there's no... It's the absence of thinking.
It's the absence of doing. It's the absence of thinking.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wrote in my journal this morning that I procrastinate. Why do I procrastinate?
Yeah.
Because my entire life I was waiting for God to do something for me.
Ooh, but isn't that what we teach most of the time?
And
to wait.
But that teaching must change.
But somebody told me that be like a waiter,
You can wait, but
serve while you wait.
I love what it says, and I think it's in Revelation. Occupy till I come.
I love that.
Don't just wait.
Be productive.
Be productive.
Until I come.
Do your thing.
Don't.
Shall I find faith? That's the important part. Yeah. So when I have the talent.
I love that, because I remember I told somebody that I want Jesus to find me working.
Absolutely.
No.
Remember the story about the talents? He gave one 10 and the other one 5 and the other one 1.
Yeah.
If he's given me one talent, I need to work with that talent.
And it's as important as the 5.
It's just as important. Because that one talent, nobody says it could have been more powerful than the 5.
But also it gives us what we can handle.
True that.
Yeah.
So these are the things that we need to look at when power is delegated upon us. We must not just be for the limelight.
Yeah.
It must not just be because I'm on the left side of the head pastor.
Yeah.
It's about what is my relationship to my Creator.
How do you model that? I mean, our time is running out, but I want to ask this: How do you build or empower slowly? Some people will say, we need to trust you with the little. because based on the little, we'll know if we can trust you. Because sometimes you give somebody, 1,000 rand, but they end up messing it up. Maybe if you started with a 10 rand and build to that would have been a different story. Because sometimes I feel like we set people up for failure. Because we don't prepare them very well.
Yeah, here's the thing. What you ask me now is the question that somebody has asked me, and the answer I gave was, how long is a piece of string?
Oh.
How long does it really take to build a leader? Some leaders flourish in the job. Some leaders need the responsibility of the job to flourish. Some leaders want a checklist 100 miles long before they actually jump in.
Right.
Now, on both of those examples, nowhere did I mention the Spirit.
Yeah. Because sometimes we can do a very good job without the Spirit. We have too many gifted
And that's
people.
what I like, because we can do a good job.
A good job.
Without the Spirit.
Yeah, because we have the skill, we have
Absolutely.
the gift. But without the anointing, that's kind of dangerous.
Yeah, and when we start differentiating, and we end off with this, when we start differentiating between the job and our calling, then we understand that not even sleep keeps us away from our calling.
Come on now.
A job has got office hours. Our calling is 24/7, 365 a year.
Yeah, he can wake you up anytime and you gotta go.
Anytime, and I've been experiencing that for the last few weeks.
Listen, we don't have a lot of time. Can we summarize this a little bit? And also you can give people details on how they can connect with you.
Yeah, YouTube channel, Dr. Dr. Marlin, Marlin, Hoffman, Hoffman. It's the YouTube channel. Please subscribe. Please like and subscribe. My social media person is not my social media person, but the social media person. She regularly wants to strangle me because I'm not sending out this message proper.
Yeah.
There's Facebook, there's Instagram, there's
you're not on TikTok yet. I need to get you on TikTok.
No, I
get you to dance a little bit with your book.
I believe that only under 50s can do TikTok.
Nah, I've seen a lot of grey hair.
Okay.
So
I must do that. Yeah. And then my WhatsApp number would be 073 011 5617. We'll think about the TikTok. I'll take that under advisement. Look, because dancing, 10 minutes of dancing is at least 2 days of DP in the snow.
I'll consult with management.
There we go.
If she approves,
there we go.
We go for it.
No, it's done.
Dr. Malan, it's a joy to talk with you every Tuesday. I don't know if there's anything that we'd like to wrap up this thing with.
I think that when, just as a closing thought, it's vitally important to understand that as a leader, I'm here temporary. I'm no different than those following. I'm a follower.
Yeah.
And this is the thing about the leader. I am an exemplary follower. Follower.
Yeah.
And I need to do that with the utmost respect. I need to do that with the utmost dignity.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm the leader.
And as much as you're a leader, you're also a follower.
Yes, I'm a follower.
You're a student, you're a learner, you're a disciple.
Just again, somebody asked on the WhatsApp line for my mobile number 073 011 5617. And yeah, that for me is the ultimate.
And next week, what's the chapter we're diving into next week?
The chapter next week,
yeah.
I can't wait to tell you about it, but I'm not going to tell you about it now.
I want the part that you've been talking with me about trauma.
Oh, no, we're going to talk about it. Talk about trauma. Yeah. Friday past.
Yeah.
My kid's father passed. So we're in a blended family, and their father passed.
Yeah.
He was Muslim.
Yeah.
And I said that, you know what, I got involved. So condolences to the kids.
Yeah.
You know, it's not easy. And here's the interesting part. That a friend in heaven is more than 10,000 friends on earth.
Wow.
So always remember that.
Wow.
And we surround you with our prayers.
Yeah.
And we support you in every way possible.
Yeah.
So thanks so much to our listeners. God bless. Love you, Stacks. Don't tell Heidi I said that.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is Dr. Marlon right here on CCFM. We are with you every Tuesday from 6 until 7 talking about his book called Academia and Spirituality, where his two worlds come together. I get to ask him all these interesting questions, but one thing that I'm very excited to really discuss with him is about trauma, because I'm very passionate about talking about trauma and also helping people find healing in that area. God bless you. Same time, same place next week.